People have a perception that a beauty queen's life is perfect. Our makeup was always done, our hair is perfectly coiffed, our teeth are always brilliantly white, and we never get dumped. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm lucky if I get mascara on in the morning. My hair is normally up in a ponytail and underneath a hat, and my dentist absolutely hates the fact that I drink coffee. Oh, and by the way, I've been dumped a lot. At just mere minutes old, my biological father walked into the hospital room, held me in his arms, and promptly proceeded to hand me back to my mother and walked out of my life forever. That was the first time I was dumped. Obviously, at mere minutes old, I didn't realize that being dumped would be a reoccurring theme in my life, but one that would propel me to some of the greatest accomplishments I've made to date. See, the story I just shared with you, I didn't find out until I was 17 years old. It was opening night of musical, and my mom yelled up the steps she needed to speak to me, so I came flying down the steps and into the dining room. I found her pacing. I was losing patience with her very quickly, and I just said, "Mom, what do you have to tell me that's so important? What are you going to tell me, that I'm adopted?" She stopped dead in her tracks, turned ghostly white, and said, "How did you know?" I didn't. She told me the story I just shared with all of you, and then she went on to tell me that Clark had adopted me when I was 8 years old, and that they were getting divorced, and she didn't want me to find out that I was adopted in the divorce proceedings. Medical health professionals call things like this adverse life events. The question I actually pose to all of you in the audience is, do we have the right coping mechanisms to deal with things like this, to have great mental health when we have adverse life events? Normally, we hear about poor coping mechanisms, but I'm here to share with you today 3 positive coping mechanisms I use every single time that I am dumped. The first of which is humor. You have to be able to laugh at yourself. Humor is an antidote to stress. It's our natural feel-good chemical. Second, we have affirmation. This is a declaration. Often, I take my kids' soap crayons and I write on the mirror or on the bathroom wall my affirmation for that day. My husband absolutely hates it. And for those of you in the audience who know him, you all know that he is a neat freak. But you know what? It keeps me on that path of where I want to go that day. Then we have redirection. When we have those adverse life events and we need to take another direction, it takes commitment. And with that commitment, it takes time. That takes 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day at a time. At age 13, I was in a pickle. I had a deep passion for soccer. However, we did not have a girls' team at my junior high. I was told there was no way I was ever going to play on that boys' team. One boy went as far as to come to my house, hand me a note, and in big, bold letters it said, "You will never play on my team." Wow. I can't even express the pain I felt by being dumped by my peers, especially by the other girls who had a passion for soccer as much as I did. But you know what? I knew that I was destined to play on that boys' team. I knew it. In my heart, I knew it. My grandfather said to me, "Jenny, don't you worry, because you know what? You're going to have the last laugh." I said, "Why is that, Papa?" She said, "Because you're going to beat them all in the sprints." I laughed a lot that season. I was usually first or second. I knew I wasn't only going to play on that team, but I was going to be the best. I had a finite direction as to how I was going to get there. I was going to appeal to the school board with 1,000 signatures, and I was going to use Title IX, which in short basically made sure that you could not discriminate on the basis of gender. Now, it was not an easy road for me, but it's one I am so thankful for. Because of being dumped, that was the catalyst that allowed me to go on to play Division I soccer and then go on to play semi-professional soccer. And I am proud to say that I still play today, and it's usually on the boys' team. 1994, the social event of the year, senior prom. I'd been dating a boy for about 3.5 years, and I was so excited to go. I raced home from track. I got in the shower. I had 2 girlfriends coming over. I was getting ready to do their hair. We were laughing and carrying on. It was about 2 hours before the prom. No boyfriend. So I called him at home. He didn't answer, so I called him at work. He picked up. I said, oh my gosh. I said, what time are you coming to get me? Dead silence. He replied, I'm not going. You see, even beauty queens get dumped on prom night. I hung up that phone. I started laughing because that was my way of coping. I turned to my aunt and my mom and I said, you know what? I'll go alone. Then I thought about it for a few minutes, and I had a little bit of a redirection. I said, I got to find myself a prom date. So I picked up the phone. I called my friend Matt. I played soccer with Matt on that boys' team that I was told I was never going to play on. I said, hey, Matt, you want to go to the prom tonight? He thought I was joking. I quickly reassured him I was not. And about an hour and a half before the prom, his mom went and took him and got a tuxedo. My mom went and got these beautiful white stem, long red roses. And because I didn't have a car, my aunt lent me her cherry red Cavalier. It was hot stuff. I had to drive because Matt was only in the 10th grade, and I'm pretty sure he didn't have a driver's license. I had the best night of my life, and it was all because I was dumped. Now, you see, being dumped is something you need to own. I competed in pageants, and I competed 31 times. I was told that I wasn't smart enough, that I wasn't tall enough, that I didn't have the right dresses. One time I was told that I'd make a great plus-size model. I was 125 pounds. I was dumped over and over and over again. But on that 32nd try, I won Miss Delaware USA. Right here. Thank you. When I went to nationals, I placed 8th in interview. I was so proud of myself. But the reason I did so well in that interview is because I had 31 times to practice. But the better part was I learned interview skills. And that's a skill set that will last me a lifetime, and it's given me so many opportunities since then. So if being dumped 31 times wasn't enough, I decided to throw my hat into the ring and audition for film and television. Sometimes you get dumped 3, 4, 5 times a week, sometimes twice in one day. And what felt like the 1,000th time that I was going to be dumped, I sent an application in for MasterChef USA. And I received an email back, and it said, you know what? Come join us. You have a preferred time, but bring your signature dish with you. I was like, all right, I can do this. The only problem was that I was in upstate New York. I was judging the Mrs. New York pageant. I was judging the Mrs. Pennsylvania pageant on that Saturday night, but I had to be in Manhattan at 9:45 on Sunday morning. So I went and I bought an electric skillet. I packed all my ingredients on ice. Yeah, gotta make sure you get the ice. I got 4 bricks from a local hardware store, and I prayed for the best. I arrived at that hotel, I sought out the chef, and I said, hey, chef, I need a big favor from you. Can you please put these bricks in your oven at 4 a.m. and heat them up to 500 degrees? He looked at me like I was crazy. I needed them to make a homemade hot box. And at 4 in the morning, I made lamb chops, a sage brown butter sauce, and I steamed a lobster. Yeah, girl, you get it. You better believe I was going to win. I brought my signature dish, and it was my own surf and turf. I packed that stuff into the hot box. I drove 2.5 hours into the city, and I hoped I did not poison anyone. That day, I went through the tasting. I went through a culinary terms test, and I finally made it to meeting the casting directors. I walked into that casting director. I looked down the line, I looked down the other line, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm the only female here with all male applicants. I recalled being on that boys' soccer team, and I thought, I know how to handle myself here. I'm going to be quick-witted, and I'm going to beat them all to the punch. I'm going to make them remember me. Well, after 6 additional interviews, 30,000 applicants, I was invited to Los Angeles. I got there, and there were 100 of us invited to cook for Joe Bastianich, Gordon Ramsay, and Graham Elliott. You know, Joe walked up to me while I was cooking one time, and he looked at my dish, and he said, "What is this?" People think you should be scared of Gordon Ramsay. Let me tell you, Joe Bastianich is the one you should be terrified of. He looked at me, and he said, "I can't even believe you would make this on this show." Picked up my dish and said, "This is a disgrace," and he dumped it right into the trash can. I knew I was better than that. So you know what I did? I went right back to my hotel room. I grabbed my soap. I wrote on that mirror, "Jennifer, you will be the next MasterChef." I went to the library. I studied. You see, we had no interaction with the outside world. We had no cell phones, no access to internet. Couldn't tell anybody why we were there. They even took our food channels away. I just studied. I wanted to go into the next competition with a framework. And for the next 45 days, I looked at that mirror. And on that finale day, I looked at the mirror and I said, in my best Gordon Ramsay accent, "Jennifer, you are the next Master Chef." Pretty bad accent. You know, when Joe dumped my dish into that trash can, it triggered something inside of me. I laughed and I said, "You know what, Joe? You're right. It is an awful dish." And I knew why I was there. I was there to win. I had to take a redirection and make sure I didn't go home before I was supposed to. I went on to win MasterChef USA. I've cooked for the vice president. I've met the joint chiefs of staff. I've walked red carpets. I've made friendships of a lifetime. I've sat with kids that are terminally ill. And because of that show, I now, with my wildly talented husband, own one of the best restaurants in the greater Boston area. Oh, yeah. You gotta love food. So I tell you, and I challenge you, each and every one of you, I want you to shake it off. Everybody in your seat, shake it off. And then next time somebody dumps you, what are we gonna do? We're gonna use humor, right? We're gonna laugh. So everybody give me a good laugh. And then we're gonna use affirmation, because you know what you want to accomplish. And then we're going to redirect. And I want you to remember that being dumped isn't always a negative thing. Thank you.